Welcome back to another episode of Whip Media TV. I'm your host, Whip Media Mickey, aka Mickey Made It. If you're new to the channel, you know what to do to the channel. Subscribe right now. Join the Vibe Tribe. Okay, on today's episode, I cover 10 life lessons we can learn from the Iron Man movie. See, Iron Man is one of the most iconic characters from the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and he's also one of the more interesting character arcs, as he evolves from a rather selfish, apathetic playboy to a true hero who saves the entire universe. Tony Stark is also one of the more flawed heroes in the franchise, and he makes many notable mistakes along the way. However, he also does some really iconic things, and the fact that he's flawed and has nuance means that fans can learn just as much from his strengths as they can from his weaknesses. The lessons from Iron Man can teach fans include things that they should do as well as some things that they shouldn't. Let's get it. Lesson number 1. Be more appreciative of the people who care about you. Despite being rich and famous, Tony Stark doesn't start out in the series really having that many friends. He generally pushes people away because of his own selfish tendencies and insecurities, but he still has people like Pepper and Rhodey who try to be there for him in spite of this. It takes time for Tony to see that he's not alone in the world, and he has to learn to appreciate the people around him more for putting up with everything Tony puts them through. Lesson number 2. Always have a plan B, C, plan D, etc. Because of everything he's been through and the fact that he's a genius, Tony is always thinking ahead. While Tony might take things too far sometimes, it's not a bad idea to have a contingency plan in place for many aspects of life. See, Tony's always ready because he always thought beyond just the next moment and take into account that things may go wrong. Lesson number 3. Using your resources to take care of others is rewarding. See, Tony is someone who was born rich because of his parents, so he didn't really have to work to become a billionaire he is. And while there's a lot that could be said about whether or not he deserves to be rich, he does at least have the tendency to try to take care of others because of his wealth. He makes suits for people he loves and tries to use money to clean up any harm the Avengers cause. And even while most fans aren't Tony levels of well off, there's still something nice about the idea of doing what they can to help those around them. Lesson number 4. It's okay to be a little flashy sometimes. While Tony does have to learn at times to be substance over style, there's also something exciting about his love of being a little flashy. He likes to show off, and he likes to have fun. Of course, he's also an example of why you shouldn't take things too far and be irresponsible. But having style and a flair is a very good thing in moderation. Lesson number 5. Putting off caring for mental health is risky. Tony Stark deals with some very real and serious aspects of mental health in his movies, and while they might sometimes be made worse by threat of things like alien invasion, the reality behind these is very applicable to many real people. He doesn't always address or get help from his own trauma, and this ends up hurting himself and others around him. For most people, things aren't as extreme as saving the universe, but Tony is a good example of why it's important to prioritize mental health. Mentoring others is a good use of your time. While Tony starts off being someone who has a hard time connecting to others and who keeps himself separate to avoid getting hurt, he becomes less this way over time. He starts to take on membership roles for others around him, like Harley then Peter Parker, and he learns then it's important to pass on knowledge and to help the younger generation. Lesson number 7. You can find family in many places. Seeing how Tony had a rocky relationship with his dad growing up and then lost both of his parents when he was only in college, Tony clearly has a lot of issues around his family. He felt very alone in the world despite having a lot of privilege and power, and he didn't want to face the lack he felt for a long time. However, he learns that he can find family and support in many ways. He finds friends and connections through the Avengers, and he learns to rely more on people He then gets to create his own family with Pepper and Morgan. Lesson number 8. Making amends for your mistakes is important. There's no denying that Tony Stark messes up a lot in the MCU. He creates Ultron and he doesn't always handle things with the other Avengers very well. However, despite this, he does at least try to make amends. Lesson number 9. Opening up to others is scary, but worth it. Tony Stark's story throughout the MCU is very much about him learning to trust others and open himself to genuine connection. He has to go through some tough life lessons when he sees the horrors that his weapons inflict, and he also sees that the way he went through life, partying and not caring about anything, wasn't very fulfilling. He clearly had a lot of insecurities and fears around opening up to others, but learning to do so is what brings him true happiness in life. Lesson number 10. You can be a hero even if you're flawed. One of the things that makes many heroes in the MCU so interesting to fans is that they are not always heroic, and Tony is one of the best examples of this. He's flawed and his actions cause harm, but he's also good in many ways. Heroes can be heroes even if they're not always perfect or if they have made mistakes in the past. Iron Man, 10 Life Lessons.